Let's kind of focus on our staff. Both of you have good-sized staffs. What was some of the impact that you saw over the last year on them, and where do you see not only work going in the future in terms of Parks and Recreation work for the future and the impact of COVID?
Yeah, I think that you talked about the red, yellow, green, right? So everybody really was impacted differently and reacted differently. So, I think we have people who were glued to the TV or whatever type of technology and information provider that they use, trying to find every update. You have other staff who were more in the boat of, hey, just tell me what we need to do. Some of them who were maybe in the other kind of camp of almost terrified and very fearful of what going back to work meant and how that was going to impact them along with the people that we serve. I don't know that we've seen that type of difference or disparity in thought in many situations that we have with COVID-19. So obviously what we've seen, I think, is providing them with the support, as much support as you can, and that's been helpful. I think Jay alluded to that, of some of the opportunities they've been able to provide their county workers. Not only that, but just trying to be as informed as possible when giving them updates, and that's not easy given the circumstances. Um, that said, in terms of how we operate, I think that what we've seen, what we're doing right now, right? We're doing this right now. We would traditionally have this in person and invite our colleagues and our buddies over to watch us talk and share what we have to say today. The traditional meeting, I think we all know this at this point, it's not necessarily a necessity. So the traditional meeting might become a virtual meeting at this point. I think we're definitely going to be going in that. And that's you, Chris, you mentioned it with something, a lot of carryover here in this conversation, but you mentioned being respectful of people's times and space. And then obviously we are in a unique avenue that we serve people that were generally in person. Obviously the virtual program came into our lives, but that's not going to replace in-person programming, not 100%. So that doesn't mean, though, that we can't do certain aspects of our job from home or virtually. And so, as I think we all know, there's a lot of businesses out there who, haven't been back at all. They haven't come back in person, and they've been doing everything virtually. We obviously don't necessarily have that option 100%, but what I think it has done is we're proving that we can do both. We can work from home and provide our communities with a service, but we can also do it in person. And in turn, it's made our staff here, at least, so much more comfortable and confident in working with the public when we've kind of actually gotten back to doing that. Where I don't think there's certain jobs out there that people probably aren't comfortable with that yet.
Jay, your take on that? What staff is, and where how work from a Parks and Recreation professional standpoint is going to evolve because of COVID?
Yeah, I think the 2 points that I would want to touch on really are how staff have evolved and grown from this whole process. One thing that I've seen is when we closed down our centers last year and during summer camp last year too, we pulled a lot of staff that aren't traditionally working at rec centers to assist with summer camp. Other sites were closed, nature centers, aquatic facilities were closed initially. So we were able to pull extra staff in to help us with our child care facilities, our remote learning sites, our summer camp sites, which then kind of grew like a new team aspect. We were working with staff that they traditionally don't work with. And it also got people to know each other better and work hand in hand with folks, because they were, a lot of staff are known to work at one site. So you kind of have your own team. You work at a rec center, you're at the same rec center every day, you have 4 or 5 full-time staff there, you always work with that 5 staff. Well, throw this change into the mix, and it's like we brought in extra staff from different divisions, different facilities. It kind of forced them to learn and grow from them. So staff that traditionally work with the rec center were working with nature staff, so they were learning about nature activities and what they do, and how our nature centers work differently than our rec centers. So it was able to give them an opportunity to kind of learn and grow about the department, what we offer big picture, but it also was able to adapt and let them see, like, hand in hand, like how they do things maybe differently, but also they can grow from them personally and professionally. On the other side of that was, we were able to then move some things virtually. So staff that have never done anything, with technology were quickly thrown into the fire to say, hey, this is how you do a Zoom meeting. This is how you do a Zoom program. these are the things you need to think about when you're planning a Zoom program. And now, our staff can comfortably run virtual programs for, 50, 100 people at a time, and then turn it off and go back in person and do it in person. That they're always used to doing that. But you have to do things a little differently when it's virtual. You have to make sure that the participants understand how to operate Zoom or Skype meetings or, whatever Teams, whatever platform you're using. So, they've learned a lot, and then they've also been able to educate other staff that may need that help. So there's been a lot of, team growth amongst staff to be able to come together so we can serve the public better.
Yeah, and I really kind of see with this team, Zoom, whatever platform it is really the efficiency of time. I've got about 5 or 6 different facilities with full-time professional staff around our community, and it's like, that 30 minutes to drive down, 30-minute meeting, 30-minute drive back now is boom, 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 boom. And there's a good and bad thing about that. And what the other thing too that I liked, Jay, what you were saying is the meeting, even our residents, at least our residents in our community, are very comfortable with Zoom and Teams, where I would be, okay, have a phone call. And of course, there's so much more to a person's expression that you can't get off of a phone call. And now I know exactly what the resident wants because I'm seeing the nonverbal communication. I'm like, oh, he or she is really, challenged with this issue. And we're boom, 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 team meetings with residents, and it's just been a real positive aspect from that we never even thought of. Now, the Teams aspect, the Zoom aspect has been around for a couple of years, but this pandemic has put that in a great point. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about is, do you see in your respective agencies, and recognizing that some of the tasks that we do as Parks and Recreation can't be done from work from home, on a work from home basis, but do you see at the professional, the administrative, the management level, the supervisory level, whatever it might be in your respective agency, a move to more from work from home, a 3 and a 2 day, a 2 and a 3 day, a 4 and a 1 day? Where do you see that kind of evolving over time?
I think, and I'll jump, Tom, unless you want to go first.
Go for it.
I'll speak from our department, and it's varied by the division.
Yep.
So right off the bat, from the beginning of COVID, like I mentioned earlier, we were forced to push our minds together and offer a child care service, summer camp service. We actually, up until February of this year, my entire division, we never worked from home. We were in the office every day. Now, other divisions, the planning department, the finance department, they were able to work from home. They can do their job from home. We can't justify our positions to be remote at any level, whether it's administration, whether it's frontline staff. So, I don't see our division going that direction because we can't really serve our
Because
citizens.
you're a direct provider of service. You're supervising the direct provision, yeah.
Yeah. So now I will say that's caused some discussions amongst our department of, why do they get to do it and we can't do it? And it's a challenging conversation. It's tough because, you can't really just tell them, well, we serve the public, because everyone serves the public. We serve them differently. They're not, our planning department is not directly face to face with participants on a daily basis like we are. So, it's just a challenge that we have to accept, but I don't see, the large majority of recreation professionals going to that remote or work from home atmosphere, unless you're certain divisions. And that's how we've done it. I'm not sure. I'd be interested to hear about Tom and your department.
Yeah, Tom being a little smaller, what are your takes on that?
Well, we're absolutely in that boat of direct provider, and I can tell you that from the day that we shut down in this office for about 2 weeks, in the sense that trying to regroup and figure out where we're going, where nobody really reported. I personally came back to work very soon. My staff eventually got kind of mixed into it, and we were ultimately at a point where we were doing, half on, half off. So, and that was for pretty much agency wide. And we got through that portion. And since I think it was probably the middle of May, our agency and many agencies around here were back full time. They didn't generally go with that work remotely. And even, Jay, you mentioned your finance and your clerks. They came back full time here as well, which is interesting because they could definitely potentially work from home, but you alluded to the fact that that would raise a lot of questions of who can do this and why can they do that. What I have seen recently is that in it, this may not necessarily be the most proactive, but our IT has been equipping everybody for the possibility of working from home. So our shared services and resources are being changed. I think we all experienced this. Those who didn't have laptops now have laptops. There's a lot that we can do virtual programming from home. And then if you talk about this exactly what we're doing here, learning, there's so many learning opportunities for our staff now that we can get virtually. And quite frankly, how many people have attended a conference virtually in their office, and how hard is it to focus? So doing that from home is actually a benefit, to not have to be in the office where the phones are ringing, or there's dozens of other staff around you. So from my experience, it's very similar to Jay's. I don't see it that it's gonna for us. It's definitely not going to be going to a model where we're going to be a fully virtual, or even I don't even know if that would be a partial virtual experience or opportunity at this point.
Well, let's kind of move on to kind of really maybe the elephant in the room for our profession. NRPA, in their annual trends issue, January, December, whenever that issue got released, indicated that 25% of the agencies, Parks and Recreation agencies, are anticipating 25% or more from a budget cut standpoint. You two organizations are different. I'm different than you guys. We're probably all funded differently in terms of tax base, sales tax, property tax, whatever, fees and programs and charges. What do you see as your impact, the impact of COVID on the budget from a short-term and a long-term basis? Short-term being, the next fiscal year, long-term being 3 to 5 years out. Jay?
I will say short term here for our department, we're very fortunate where we sat on, and we're still sitting on all of our vacancies. So, that helped our bottom line tremendously here. We also took the stance when we closed down and we're only offering limited programs that we did not actually bring on any of our part-time staff. So the amount of money that was saved from vacancies and not having part-time staff, we actually are at a safe level right now. And we're not worried about this next budget. My bigger concern is kind of 2, 3, 4 years down the line and what that looks like. I will say in the immediate future, one couple things that we're doing that I'm working on is kind of some alternate funding opportunities. Obviously most agencies at some point in the last year took on some CARES Act money, which we did too, and updating some of our senior facilities through CARES Act, which is fantastic. Our remote learning sites right now, there was a state-funded grant for remote learning, so we were able to bring in some revenue from that. If we didn't offer that program, we wouldn't have any revenue coming in, but because of that grant, we were able to do that. And then immediately also in the future, we're looking at a lot more collaborations with other agencies, other departments that can help with some staffing and with some funding that we may not have access to offset some of those shortfalls right now. But there's definitely more question marks for the long term than I would say for the short term.
Well, let me ask you another question, and you may just not be aware of it, but in terms of you're a city, you're a county of Mecklenburg. Are you 100% on property tax collection? I know you have some fees and charges for service, but is your main dollars property tax?
Yeah, we are solely based off of taxes coming in.
Okay, but property tax, not service.
Yes, we're relying on that. Obviously, our revenue goals are different from a fees and charges.
Right.
But for operational, yes.
Okay. And Tom, what about you? What do you see kind of short-term impacts of COVID on your budget, your smaller agency,
Sure.
And then long-term, what's going on in Hilton-Parma, looking out 3 to 5 years?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I won't reiterate everything. Jay, you mentioned a lot of similarities, and with that came a lot of. This goes back to when we were talking about staff. So we had to, and I think Parks and Rec is always used to this, but the jack of all trades, right? So Jake touched on this. Everybody learning different skills, and ultimately we didn't bring back a lot of part-time staff, so that obviously helped us. So that's in a similar place. What we did last year to help us out, we basically generally operate on a 50% cost recovery model. All right, so we've grown that from I think it was started at about 25% when I got here, and we've gotten to kind of an area where we're comfortable around 45 to 50. Well, obviously last year was different. It was going to be completely different, and so you're actually asking the question of how much did you recover out of your expenditures versus your revenue. And a lot of communities around here were in the, I think a lot of communities nationwide from an NRPA survey that was given, were in that neighborhood of 25 to 30% recovery. And that's not revenue versus expenses. That's just what they projected in terms of revenues for last year, given COVID. We were right around 50. And so because of that, that was, we had a lot of success. And why? And it was basically from the reasons that Jay mentioned: alternative funding, maximizing any kind of opportunity that was out there from state or county aid, and then partnerships and collaborations. One of the big themes that I've taken from COVID is that where there have been a lot of losses for businesses and organizations, you can probably equally find a business that has gained. And so where we talk about our local grocers or our local, food establishments who, some of them did phenomenal. Like you wouldn't think that they did, but they did. And we were able to partner with those organizations who provided us with either services or products, as a donation or a sponsorship, things that we normally wouldn't have sought out, and ultimately turn those into revenue generating experiences for our community. So that's been a big thing for us, is finding the right partner. They're out there. As far as the long term, for us, it's for communities around this area, it's sales tax, but it's also, I'm sorry, it's property tax, but it's also sales tax revenue. And so depending on the community that you're in, whether it's, a major mall or an outlet or car dealerships, whatever it may have been, sales tax revenue is going to impact a lot of these communities for years to come. That's probably one of our biggest concerns right now.
Yeah, and what I've seen in red is there are some who are benefiting greatly from sales tax right now, and some who are losing it a lot. Any type of places, especially on the initial onset of COVID, that we were going to the big box stores, because those are the only ones who had supplies, where they saw it shot up. I can't remember which one said it, that there were certain industries that benefited. We're finally able to collect sales tax on internet sales, web-based sales. And so while some of our big box retailers went down significantly, especially during that March, April, May time period, the money that was coming in through the internet tax was phenomenal. I mean, it really stabilized our organization as a whole. And so that's what I think one message that I would say for the people who are listening is look around, look at the whole tax picture, look at, everything. Now, certain sectors may be down, others might be up. But from a long-term standpoint, I think really there's probably going to be three different segments of our population. One that are going to be cut, like NRPA projects, is one that this is like nothing that has happened. Yes, there was a little blip, but nothing's really happened. And three that are going to come out of this okay. There's a community that I've talked to in Indiana, and they're based on income tax, and their numbers are going up right now. So, when you hear things about national news saying, all these concerns, and rightfully so, there's people who are challenged very much, but then you hear other indicators that are completely opposite. It's really tough to kind of forecast for your respective agency, what's going to look like. Is there anything else that maybe we haven't covered that we can touch upon in the remaining minutes to just say, if I had, if there was one good idea about what I've done at my respective agency that I want to share with folks from around the country, what would that be? So Jay, what would be that one potentially idea that Mecklenburg did really well, and you want to kind of share and brag?
I think, and I've kind of talked about it a little bit, is, our ability to still focus on our employees was key. And it wasn't just Park and Rec employees, but, there's been a lot of, benefits that we've provided county employees during COVID that weren't available to everyone. And, you take that advantage, and you actually may not even realize it's such a perk to you. But, I mentioned earlier about some of these programs that we've offered. A lot of our, virtual fitness programs that we started doing at first was only available to county employees. And it was one of those, perks. We wanted to still provide a service to county employees and do something that was special to them. And, we did that all virtual. We did it during lunchtime hours. So every day at noon, there was a virtual fitness class, a variety of different types of classes that was available for them for free. So, traditionally, they may have gone to our rec centers or gone to our aquatic facilities, and they couldn't do that. So they could now do a virtual class, and they knew they had registration available because there's no limit when it's virtual. Whereas like if you're trying to do a spin class, we obviously can't have 50 people in a spin class. We don't have that many bikes. So that's kind of one of the benefits that came out of that. But the other thing that I would want to talk about is just our focus on our staff and their well-being. We were really able to grow staff, let them look at things a little bit differently, focus on growing and learn about technology, learn about doing things outdoors, make them think differently. We can't always just say, well, we've always done it this way, so let's do it that way anymore.
Yeah.
So, with our forcing our staff and our forcing the ability that, we can't have this many people in the room anymore, we can't have this many people in our program, how can we still meet the needs to our participants, but actually follow guidelines of socially distanced program and X amount of people in a room at a time. So, we've really made them think differently, and it's provided some great programs, and they've been able to, use those skills of just kind of being able to adapt and think outside the box and make them program differently.
Sure. Tom, last word. What's something that you want to
Sure.
just kind of share with the rest of the community about something that Hilton-Parma did really well during this COVID and you really see as a success?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that we've had these discussions in the past, but what we've seen more than ever now is that Parks and Recreation is a leader in the social services. So, whereas Jay brings up the point of we can't always do things the way we used to. Yes, we had to think differently for our programming and our facilities, but also what we could provide our community. Just a little anecdote. I remember sitting on a call with community leaders, so all of our town and city supervisors and city managers, and the discussion was about how the county was going to provide millions of masks to all of the communities. All right, and it was now our job as a community to distribute those to the patrons and the people, the residents of the community. I was fortunate enough to be sitting on that call. I got off of that call, called our town supervisor, and I said, "Hey, don't even think about it. Let us take care of it. What do? We're Parks and Recreation. We run events. You're looking at organizing a mass distribution during the heart of COVID. We're talking, April, where, where people were just terrified to get out of their cars. So let us do it. We have the space, we have the staff, we have the resources and the experience to run an event like that without a flaw." And so we took it on, and those are the types of things I'm seeing now. There's organizations nearby who are their Parks and Rec staff are helping with vaccinations, the organization. So, obviously in the heart of everything that's been going on in our nation over the year, I think Parks and Recreation stands strong, and we are not just Parks and Recreation. We definitely provide so many services that go beyond that to our communities.